I'll call the meeting to order. Comments from citizens present. Is anyone on the call that would like to make a comment? 3 minutes. No one has their hand raised, so we'll close that portion of the meeting. Approval of minutes from the March 8th, 2022 meeting.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. License and permits. Application for a temporary Class B retailer's license to sell beer and wine by Middleton Youth Hockey, P.O. Box 628311, Middleton. Alan Schecker, President, for August 25th through the 28th, 2022 at Fairman's Park for Good Neighbor Festival.
And so this one, I compared it to last year's. It's nearly identical. This one's actually more detailed because it didn't have the other pages last time. The one thing we're missing here is a safety plan, which I suspect will be identical to the one last year, but I have not been able to confirm that yet. Also on the application, which of course mine froze up, but the dates weren't mentioned, or on the very first page, the dates were off. I think they must have inadvertently put the dates of that they probably filled out the permit. But later in the permit, it does say August 25th through 28th. So I don't have any issues, again, from the police department, as long as they work with me and get that safety plan taken care of.
Last year was the new layout with the fencing, and were there any concerns from the police?
No, not from the police department standpoint. There were a couple logistical issues that they hadn't really thought of as far as a point of egress for people heading to the south towards North Ave, because that's where the band was. So there were some frustrated people that had to kind of walk around the perimeter, but they did address that mid festival, and they just made a point of egress out to the west side so that people could go around there.
Okay. Is Alan on the call? Don't see him.
No, I'm not seeing him.
Okay.
I'd
Is
move
there
approval
any-
contingent. I'd move approval contingent on the safety plan being approved.
I'll second.
Okay. You don't need them to update the dates on that, do you, Jeremy, or would you?
I think it's fine. It does. It mentions later on, and if you keep scrolling through, it does have the correct dates later in
Okay.
there. So I
Okay.
don't see any issue with that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 2, application for expanded premise by a Class B retailer, Capital Ice LLC, doing business as Bob Stewart Capital Ice Arena, 2616 Pleasant View Road, Garrett Suter, agent.
And this one came directly to me. So this is not affiliated with a special event permit because it's on private property.
Okay.
So they want to do it completely in their parking lot. This was just forwarded to me late last week by Lori, so I got it on here. They are aware that they need a safety plan. I do not have that yet here either. This is supposed to be approved by building inspection and fire. I sent it to both of them last week. Fire has responded and they have no issues with it. I have not heard from the building inspector yet.
What are the dates of this one? Let's see.
Yeah, I was just gonna look up the.
It's June
Packet.
10th through 12th.
Oh, so it's coming up.
Yeah.
Okay. Did they have this event before? Is this the first time they're doing this particular event?
This is the first one that I am aware of. I think it actually might be one of the questions here. Maybe not. It's on a special event permit.
I think it is on there. You're right. I did look at these. I looked at a bunch of them. So.
Yeah, I know.
Lots of pages in this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no mention of it in there. I am not familiar with it. I did not have any record of it in prior events.
Okay. Any other discussion? We don't have a motion on this yet, do we?
No.
No, I'll move approval contingent on a satisfactory safety plan.
And now you said the building inspector still has to weigh in on this too, is that correct?
There is a place to sign off on it, yes. And I sent it to them late last week. So I will follow up with him too.
So Katie, can we have safety plan and approval of the building inspector?
Sure, I'll amend that to contingent on a safety plan and building inspector sign off.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 3, application for an outdoor amplified sound permit by Wisconsin Youth Company, a commercial enterprise, 733 Struck Street, Madison, for sound system and speeches and announcements, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., May 21st, 2022, for the Thrive and Stride fundraiser at Orchid Heights Park.
This one also not associated with a special event. It came directly to me because they're under the numbers. So they, Laura did do some work with them. They said somewhere they're estimating about 100, no more than 150 participants. It is a fundraiser. And I personally have no issues from the police department standpoint.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
I'll second, starting at 10 a.m., right?
Correct.
I made notice of that for you, Dan.
I just wanted to say it out loud.
You can even sleep in a little bit that day.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Katie, opposed?
No,
Yeah.
I
Okay, motion carries. Number 4, application for an outdoor amplified sound permit for Christine Ratter for Gilda's Club, a commercial enterprise, 7907 UW Health Court, for sound system band and announcements, 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on June 16th, 2022, for the Gilda's Backyard Barbecue fundraiser.
And this is also not affiliated with a special event. This is all on their private property, a fundraiser. No issues with the sound from PD standpoint.
Okay,
Move approval.
I'll second.
further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 5, application for a special event permit by City of Middleton Arts Committee, Abby Attune, contact person for the Art Walk Middleton 2022 for May 14th, 2022 on Terrace Avenue.
And Abby's here, so I know she's been working with Laura, so I guess I would defer to her on this one.
We heard the feedback at the last LNO meeting, and so we've kind of tried to simplify things a bit. We're no longer going to be requesting that people can take a beer out into the street. They will keep all of the alcohol in the beer garden. We didn't want to have to pay the cost for the construction fencing. It was really expensive. And also, we didn't think that it conveyed the type of event we wanted, where if you're taking an ID at the gate, it doesn't really feel like a family-friendly event. So we took that aspect out. And then we also took the feedback to minimize the road closure. So it stops just west of Aurora Street. We'll still have residents along that stretch that we will do communication with and enhanced notice, flyers on the door, etc. But that will minimize the disruption to those folks. So I think those are the primary changes. The only amplified sound will be within the beer garden, so that falls under Capital Brewery's permit that they already have.
By moving it to Aurora, do you still think you're going to have plenty of space to do what you need to do?
We do, yeah. We have plenty of space for the tents. We have over 30 artists that will have 10 by 10 tents, and then what we really need additional space for are the demonstration artists, because we have a glass blower and we want to make sure that you know, we have an area roped off around him. But we've mapped it out and we still have enough space.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. I will move approval.
I'll second.
Fine. Abby, I just got we're going to be talking about the fencing later on in here. If you were to do your event, would you have to have gone all the way around all the tents?
That's,
So that
that's
people
my
could-
understanding.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
So what we were trying to get a cost put together for was a fence that was basically gonna fence off the whole right of way.
Yeah.
The entire length. So it was gonna be pretty expensive.
okay.
But also just, I mean, even thinking back to like the beach party that used to be downtown Maryland would get the fencing. I would never take my kids inside that fenced area because that to me says this is a
Adult.
different type of event. This is not, you know, a family event. So we would still go and listen to the music, but we never like checked IDs to go inside that fenced area because that felt like a different
Okay.
zone to me. So we
Well,
also
I was just
like
kind
that.
of trying to figure out if you wanted people to be able to carry it, where that would have to go, but that's all it does.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Kathy, may I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Abby, on the SCP, you have mobile food carts listed as being at the event. Do you have a location for those yet?
There will be 4 and they're all going to be under the tap. So we
Okay,
took advantage of that opportunity, the Terrace Avenue Pavilion, where you don't have to follow the same permitting requirements because all of the food carts that we were talking to didn't want to go through the fee and that process because they don't generally vend in Middleton. And so we found 4. One is a dessert option, and then the other 3 are savory food options. I don't remember the names of all of them off the top of my head because one of our committee members booked them, but they would all be stationed under the tap, and we've confirmed the electricity allowances that are available there, and those are all enough to power the carts. They're not full trucks. They're the carts that are pulled behind the trucks.
mhm,
So they, you know, they unhitch the cart and that will be stationed under the tap.
okay. And have you talked to Lori about the approval of mobile food vendors? They have their licenses, et cetera.
I know that they have to be licensed through Public Health Dane County, but my understanding is that they do not have to get the $500 annual.
Right, but I think we still need to see that they've been approved. So why don't I'll have Laura follow up with you offline
Okay,
on that, just to make sure we have that base covered with the city.
yeah, that would be great. And I know, let me see here, the list, okay, I got the list here if you want to hear the names of them. These came from an event that Elm Lawn had a couple of years ago. I don't know if they had previously gotten a permit to operate in Middleton to be able to be at Elm Lawn, but they don't need, none of them have the annual permit right now active. So they have vended here in Middleton before, but they're not current on the annual permitting.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so
Thanks,
we
Kathy.
have, okay, we have motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Abby.
Number 6, application for renewal of an annual outdoor amplified sound permit by Jennifer Cradwell, Akiba Sports Center, a commercial enterprise, 8312 Forsythia Street, for band, sound system, speeches, announcements, and karaoke, 8 a.m. to midnight, May through October 2022.
And this is pretty much a repeat of last year's. They changed it. Last year's was 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. You guys approved up till midnight, so it looks like they changed that. Last year, you also denied the ability to play the bands, which I see they have checked this time as well. My understanding from conversations with Laura is they do intend to do the concert series again, but they would apply for an amp sound permit for each of those.
And that's when we could find out about the bands? Or would that, then they would need a separate outdoor amplified sound permit for each of those when they get their special event permit?
If I recall correctly, I think last year they filed one additional amp sound permit for the 2 or 3 concerts that they had. I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, once they set the dates, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Mhm.
And then they set the special events as a series also.
Correct.
Is Jennifer or anyone from Kiva on the line?
You don't see them here.
I guess I would rather see the bands as that series, so we know when they're planning on having bands. That's a much bigger crowd. Just to kind of more of an alert for people. I don't know. What do you guys think?
To have them come all at one time, once they have the dates, is that what you're asking?
The series, yeah.
Yeah, that's a
So
good way of doing it.
no band here, but have them as part of the series. Katie, what do you think on that?
I agree. I don't know if they ever have just like a small band for like volleyball or anything. I don't know if that's ever a thing. But I do agree that the series needs to be separately permitted.
Yeah, and I don't know, when they're having like karaoke and sound system and DJ, I'm wondering if that's the kind of thing they do for volleyball. I've never gone out there, so I don't know. It'd be nice to hear. This still has to go to council. And if we could get that answer from them, we could address it when it comes to council, because it's before 9 a.m.
Yeah, and it actually goes, well, since it's Monday through Friday, it's every day. I think it's actually.
Oh, I thought it was weekends too.
Well,
Every day.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's every day. So it going until midnight is actually in excess.
Oh,
of
that's
the
right.
ordinance says
Yes,
as well.
yes,
But
that's correct.
I can follow up with them. Like I said, last year they actually didn't have, or they had karaoke marked. This one does not. This is just band and sound system. So.
Okay, so if we could find out if they plan on having bands outside of the series, maybe small bands, and then we'll address that when we get to council, if we want to allow it or not. Katie, does that sound okay?
Sure. Does that mean a deferring or no? Just
No,
saying we can approve it
without the band, and then when we get to council, as a council, I think we can say we can include the band if they're going to do small ones.
Sure, I'll approve it with those conditions. I'll move approval without the bands for now.
Okay.
All right, second.
Any further
Just for-
discussion?
Yeah, for what it's worth, my copy of it does show that they've checked karaoke and DJ.
You know what? Yeah, I apologize. I was looking at the printed off copy from last year that I did. I have too many screens open, apparently. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, so this would be for sound systems, speeches, announcements, karaoke, and DJ. So,
Correct. Yes.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we can do 7 and 8 together. Application for a special event permit by Capital Flight, Nat Holfelder, contact person for a private function on June 3rd, 2022 at Capital Flight, 8264 Airport Road, and an application for an outdoor amplified sound permit by Matt Holfelder for Capital Flight, a commercial enterprise, 8264 Airport Road, for DJ and speeches announcements 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on June 3rd, 2022 for a private function.
And Matt's been mostly working with Laura here, but I think he's on the call and able to answer any questions. Is that you there, Matt? Oh,
He's regressed.
well, he just muted again, so.
Nope, I'm here. I got
All
it.
right. You can go ahead and kind of, I guess, explain what you got going here, Matt.
Yeah, really, we're just having a private fundraising get together in the hangar, and it's pretty basic. No anticipated flight activity or any of that. So it's just just a nice event in the hangar. The Airport Commission has seen it. They approved it at this last Airport Commission meeting. Of course, obviously, Rich is briefed and the whole thing. So
Okay,
pretty small one in comparison to kind of what we normally would be doing.
okay.
Yeah, I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries for the special event permit and the outdoor amplified sound permit for June 3rd. Ordinances.
Thanks,
An ordinance to address stop signs at Graver Road and Tribeca Drive at Parmenter Street.
And this was just a recommendation from Public Works Committee. So Tribeca now comes through up to Parmenter Street. So they just wanted to adopt and officially adopt a stop sign there. And then it said that Graber Road at West Beltline Highway apparently was a little artifact of our ordinance that never got removed when the Beltline became Parmenter Street. So just cleaning those things up. Matt has provided the changes there in ordinance, and that's that.
Move to recommend approval to the council.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Miscellaneous. Now, these are things that came forth as we were talking about the art walk, and they asked if we could have a further discussion about them. And the first one is a discussion on fencing requirements for alcohol sales for special events involving temporary Class B licenses or expanded premise. And I don't want to, there's certain times I think they want fencing. I don't know. Like at the Good Neighbor Fest, is that something they want to keep, or what's the best way to go about this? But I think it warrants a discussion. This, Larry, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that this was like a Middleton designated requirement. Not other communities, not every community does something like this.
That's true, although we are not the only community that does it.
Oh, we aren't.
No, but, part of the questions is if you change it, I don't know how many permittees you have already who are complying with the requirement, are perfectly willing to do it. So if you change it for one, you're gonna have to change it for everybody.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
if that's what you want to do, of course, it's a policy decision. I guess part of the question I think deserves discussion, and obviously I wasn't at previous meetings, is what is the problem with the double fencing requirement from the perspective of the licensees?
Mhm. I think that I did read that if it's 6 feet or higher, it can be a single fence. Is that what I read? And then if it's under 4 feet, it has to be double. I guess I don't know. I know that this was one question that came up last year when someone the VFW wanted to rent or set up a little celebration at Stonehurst Green, and they would have to have fencing if they wanted to have beer there. And I know that was part of that discussion also. And I know they have to have control. If you have an expanded premise or temporary Class B, you have to be in control of the people that you're serving. You have to know who they are. You can't,
Right.
It can't be just flowing out into every area. And that's how they decided. Okay.
But isn't this part of how this discussion came about, was the Stonehorse Green and how we were going to handle events there?
That could be part of it also. And how would we, right now, alcohol is allowed, but they have to be closed containers that you take into that. If somebody wanted, I don't even know how they're planning on doing this, but if you would have to have either an extended premise or a temporary license to sell anything there, I think, right?
Yep, for sure.
And I don't know if that's something they're planning on doing or thinking about doing, but that was part of the discussion. But I just wanted to bring it back as part of what they were thinking of for the art walk, that we are actually going to talk about it. So.
Did the Good Neighbor Fest have double fencing?
Mhm.
Well, it was a hybrid. So they did single fence around the larger portion. It was double fenced inside where after 9 PM where only people over 21 were allowed.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
Didn't we give them a special exemption? I think it was still 4 feet tall, but we said they didn't have to double fence it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that always came down to the cost, and much like Abby said, for that big of an area to double fence, I have no idea what the cost would be. I'm sure it's not cheap though.
No.
And in Stonehorse Green, I think one of the issues was it's a public open area, but then somebody was going to be selling alcohol with a temp B and then fencing off one part of it and what is allowed. And there was this kind of informal, 50-50, but I don't think anybody really knows exactly what all of the rules are going to be at Stonehorse Green.
And it was kind of funny because if they were trying to control what they were selling alcohol, but yet people could bring in alcohol all the way around the outside of it, was kind of a hybrid problem. So, yeah. So I don't know. If it's just if last year, if it worked without the double fencing, Larry, do most communities have double fencing? Do you know, or have you seen that? Or?
Madison mostly does not. In fact, I don't know of any in Madison where they are double fenced
Even at 4
And
feet
they-
high?
or less.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they're more casual about it than we are. But again, it's a policy decision. There's no right or wrong answer. I mean, I remember when the policy was developed and the concern was for large crowds consuming significant alcohol and rushing the tent or rushing out from the tent, and the fence was supposed to dissuade that kind of thing from happening. And if you've never had a problem, I certainly could understand a desire to change the policy, because it's just a policy, it's not an ordinance.
Mhm.
But it's the main message has to be that, and obviously you did it the right way for Good Neighbor Fest. You granted an express exception from it, but if you're going to change it to one, then it's going to be one for everybody, even those who are doing fine with two.
Mhm. Mhm. The example of
Can't have individualized rules for all the different licensees.
Yeah. The example that came up was when they had like Taste of Madison, and on the corners of the square, they would offer alcohol for sale, but that wasn't fenced in, and Madison's completely different than this. So that was the example that they brought up, and I just wanted to have a discussion around it.
Or concerts on the square. Yeah, I mean,
True. Yes.
obviously it's a separate area, but there's no, in theory, a little kid could stand in the line and not get served, and there wouldn't be anybody checking that kid until they got to the window and asked for beer.
Mhm.
That's how Madison handles it. I'm not saying right or wrong. It's a matter of
Yeah.
policy.
And they have different vendors, so it's not like one vendor who has to take the responsibility of that area. Like when we have a temporary license or expanded premise, it's somebody is in control of that. There's somebody's name on the line. So I don't know if it's an organization that Madison has up there that's like an overarching organization that takes responsibility. I'm not sure how that works.
Well,
I
it could
don't-
be for those big events like Taste of Madison. I think that they have an overarching organization, like you're saying, that take charge of that. I think what's going to happen is, because Stonehorse Green in that area is going to be so brand new, we don't really know what to expect, what kind of events we're going to have, what's going to exactly go on down there, that this might be a moving target, and we might have to, as a kind of fleshes itself out. These are policy questions that we'll probably have to ask ourselves, but we don't really know right now because we don't know how it's going to work. So it may take, a season before we have a handle on exactly what we think we might have to change.
Mhm. And I did reach out to Capital Brewery today, and they already have their fencing, what they do it often enough that they know what they're, what fencing they need. So that wasn't an issue with them. So we can just,
Okay, mine does that too.
so I don't know, do we want to do anything with this other than, do we want to go down so they don't have to double fence, or do you want to leave it double fenced? And then if this ever becomes a problem, talk about it again sometime, or?
Well, do we, if we go down to not double fence, do we have to go back to all the other folks that we've already given permission to and tell them they don't need to double fence? Or do we start with a date, all applications after this date?
Larry?
Well, that's a good question.
Do we have
And
any a lot of outstanding permits that would be getting ready for double fencing?
I'm looking at my record of events and I really don't think we do. Yeah, I see the Chamber of Commerce event in May, that's at Lakeview Park. I think they're gonna be serving alcohol. Other than that, it's mostly private events, or like Rock the Ramp is on there, but that's on private property. The Cruise Inn doesn't serve alcohol. And we'd have Good Neighbor Fest, which is coming up.
Good Neighbor Fest would have to come back and ask for an exemption to that, wouldn't they, if we don't do anything now? Because last year we said they could do certain areas single fence, but we haven't said that. They came and asked us specifically for that, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
Because that was
That
their new format.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think that was part of the approval. I don't know tonight, so.
I'm fine. with single fence.
Excuse me, everyone. I wasn't sure if this is an open discussion or not. This is Brad Ritter. I'm actually the grounds chair for the Good Neighbor Fest this year.
Oh,
I didn't know, is this an open discussion item where I could share just a little bit of feedback, or?
sure, please do.
Okay. Yeah, sure. This is actually why I called in today. We saw the item on the agenda list, and I was assuming this wasn't triggered by the Good Neighbor Festival, but I wanted to just
No.
double check.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate that you guys are discussing all these items. I know at the end of the festival last year, I had a really good meeting with Captain Geisler about the event, the way it went, and kind of the exemptions that you guys provided for the fencing, because it definitely, the event changed dramatically last year from years past. We were able to take the previous experiences, kind of roll it into what we did last year, and feel like we have a better idea of how to manage the grounds even this year with that open concept. So you did grant us a lot of flexibility with the fencing, and this is something that I was hoping to discuss with next month's meeting. We plan to have all of the plans together here so that it could be reviewed at next month's meeting, and I'd have a little bit more detailed information to share with you all about what we saw, how we feel we could manage the grounds, specifically the concerns with alcohol, the concern for alcohol being served to minors. I heard mentioned that some of the other events have multiple vendors. Now with, I'm also on the board of Middleton Youth Hockey. Now with Middleton Youth Hockey controlling the beer concession entirely, we can comfortably say that when we're doing our ID checks, we do have control over that. Now, obviously, I would hate to say things can happen, but things can happen. We do use a private security firm to do that. Our bartenders are all licensed. So those are things that we'll continue to do to mitigate those concerns. But I just wanted to chime in here and say that, yes, the Middleton Good Neighbor Fest information will be coming for you guys to review. And I hope to speak to you guys at greater length at the next meeting. But if there are any questions specifically right now, I'm happy to answer any of them. Okay.
Thanks, Brad.
You bet.
Appreciate
Oh,
it.
let me suggest that since you're kind of betwixt and between the fencing season, shall we say, it's obviously your choice, but maybe this is a discussion to have in the fall when the season is over.
Okay.
And figure out what's the best thing to do based on your experience here. Then you don't have any question of someone coming back and saying, hey, we had to do double fence and now you took it away. We'll be treating everybody the same this year, unless, like you did last year for Good Neighbor Fest, you granted a specific exemption upon a specific request.
Excellent. That sounds like a good plan. So now this is just for discussion. We don't actually have to do a deferral or anything on this? We just
No,
do or table
No.
it or anything? Okay.
And then Jeremy, if you just want to put in your notes to bring this back in October or.
Okay. And also the next two items are related to food carts. The first one, Nat Holder was wondering about doing an exemption for food carts similar to the Terrace Avenue Pavilion at Maury Airport. They, I think part of the food cart permitting was discussed, and it was part of how to be fair to the brick and mortar restaurants in downtown and opposed to food carts. That was part of the discussion. And Matt, if you're still on.
Looks like he is, but.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yep,
And you're
I am.
thinking as there's not a lot of restaurants or food options out in the Maury Airport area?
No, the thing is, the food trucks really are a perfect ally for the airport environment because it's just a big open field essentially. And when we have events out there, having that taken off our plate where folks that know what they're doing can come in self-contained, do their thing, make our folks happy with, multiple options and good things. Because most caterers, as our events have grown, where we were essentially, giving a dollar amount for the whole evening. When we switch to a public style event, most caterers don't want any part of taking, more than one check for the whole thing. And these
Right.
folks, that's all. So it's absolutely perfect for what we do out there. And the opportunity to use those folks, is great.
Have you had food carts out there before, or have you asked people to come out before as it's
Yeah,
currently set up?
Yeah, so food trucks have been used for cruising and rock the ramp. For cruising last year. And it worked so well that any larger events, we'd like to be able to, utilize those folks. And really, we're only doing 2 public events per year out there. So, our ties to the food carts, Jade does the volunteering for Wannaboom in Wanakee for the 4th of July. And her role was setting up all of the food cart vendors. So she knew a lot of those folks, and it became easy to say, hey, we do an event out at the Middleton Airport. Would you like to be a part of it? And that sort of thing.
Mhm. Did you hear any feedback from those vendors on the permitting process or the costs or anything? Did you hear any feedback from them?
Well, I do know that a few of the folks that we've asked from Wannaboom have, expressed, hey, for 2 times a year, that's kind of an expensive thing for us to do. I know that their margins are pretty thin and relatively tight. And if they're not coming to Middleton very often, twice a year, once a year, that becomes they can't dig out from that, and they'll pass. So it restricts us a bit on the amount or who we might be able to get that normally we would be able to get if that were not in place.
Okay. Well, part of this discussion is around the food cart operators permit, and we heard a little bit I heard from Abby when they were talking about getting the food carts for the art walk. And something that came into my mind was when you apply for your permit, the owner, I think, applies for it and they're considered an operator. But if anybody else is in that cart at the same time, then they have to apply for an operator's permit. And the operator's permit that's $100 per year. And if you're only doing one event, you would have to pay $100 to get this per year operator's permit. And when I checked with Lori Burns, she said for alcohol servers, it's $50 for 2 years for their alcohol servers or bartender's license. So I'm thinking that either we should have an option where they can add extra operators could be included with the permit, because I think when you have a food truck, it's not usually just manned by one person. Or if any additional operators could have a reduced cost, then they wouldn't need $100 for a full year's operator's permit. What do you guys think of that?
I totally agree with that. Especially if you're at a big event, you need the staff working hard and fast. You're cutting out, man, think of all the sales you'd have to do on sandwiches just to make up the operators permits.
Just to be
Well,
clear,
and,
the way I understand it
just
is,
to give you another chunk of feedback that we heard is, Dane County is a pretty population-rich area, but it's made up of a lot of different municipalities. And, for some of these food truck folks that are just trying to make it, they go, I've got different permits, different applications, different dollars that I'm trying to manage for Middleton, Wanakee, Oregon, DeForest, and it just kind of becomes overwhelming, I think, for folks to try to be in compliance of kind of all of it. And, that's some degree of feedback that we've gotten. And I know that Wanakee has made it, at least for Wannaboom and that, where they've tried to really make it easy. They don't have to come in to do it. It can be an online thing. It's streamlined and it's inexpensive because they want those folks to want to come there and support the events, as opposed to, it's a sizable revenue generator to have these folks come in and do that. They're kind of looking at it from that, that other point of view.
and I just want to throw in there for the way that the ordinance is written is that the operator's license only applies to those people who are not the initial applicant. So if the applicant is present and the additional operators do not need a permit.
Does the applicant have to be, do they have to own the truck? They have to be the owner?
So it just says each person who will be operating the unit without the presence of the applicant will need to obtain a license. So
So
if
if the applicant's not there, each and every operator will need a separate operator license.
that's the way I read it. I don't know, Larry, if you have any clarification.
Which again is more restrictive than alcohol. Where, you could have 5 bartenders on duty, as long as one of them is licensed, the other 4 don't need to be. And so it's not just the licensee. You could have a licensed operator, again, at perhaps a more minimal fee if it's not the owner. And that person could be, legally responsible for the other people working there without a separate fee.
Jeremy, you said you usually do the background check as part of the operator's permit. If you had a food cart, do you think having the one lead person have the background check would be sufficient, or do you think that it should apply to everyone?
Well, I guess if you're making the analogy with the alcohol licenses, like Larry said, that it's not required, you just need the one licensed person. And if the owner is there, the holder of the license, that person counts as the person who's licensed. So I guess I would say if anybody's going to be there alone and operating, we'd like to know who that person is. And I don't even mean, I guess I shouldn't say alone. If there's 5 people working there, we should probably know at least one person who's going to be operating the cart. So then we would do background. Yeah.
So that at least one person would have had a background check anyway, as part of the permit. Yeah.
The applicant is the one who has the background check, yes, when we initially do it. And if they would file, if anybody else would submit an operator's license, then we would do a background on that person.
I guess I would be more inclined to say that once you do the application, that it would include at least 2 operators, and then they wouldn't have to pay for the second person, but they could do a background check. So like if somebody steps away for a minute, there'd still be somebody that was able to they would be responsible at that point. Dan, Katie, what do you think of making some adjustments to some of these?
I absolutely agree with that. I think we need to make this a little less onerous, and, you know, nothing is saying that the brick and mortar restaurants couldn't also have food trucks that could go out to Maury or wherever. And I think it's a super hot trend as far as the way food is. People want to get their food, they want to have lots of options. And I think if we can make this more amenable, I think it's a great idea. I like your solution a lot, Kathy.
One thing I'm kind of wondering about was, if we open this up to Maury, are there more places that would want this also? Are we, I could see more people coming forward and asking for this, but I'm wondering if, and Matt, you can tell me, you know, if we would adjust the pricing on some of this, if that would be sufficient to attract the food carts that you're hoping to capture out there.
I think that's possible. And to be honest, a look at a citywide thing may be the best course of action, and kind of swing the pendulum back the other way, because I do think there's probably a lot of events that could utilize, you know, these folks to provide this service. And if Middleton makes it easier or reasonably expensive, or, you know, inexpensive for them to be able to still operate their business successfully, you'll probably see more of a presence, if that's what Middleton wants. You know, I'm not throwing events outside of that, but having a restaurant roll up to the location is awfully nice.
Matt, and I appreciate you bringing this thought to us to discuss. It does bear. I did also, Lori did say that there wasn't a lot of extra administrative time on their end. You know, so we're not, like, we were reducing fees or including 2 people. It wasn't going to be a huge burden on them. Jeremy, you didn't seem to, it's not real involved, is it, to
No,
do background checks?
It's a handful of minutes to take, and so adding a couple to a permit wouldn't be a huge operational impact on us.
So I would like to try the approach of maybe lowering some of the fees that have been associated with these food carts, instead of just isolating Maury Field as a place similar to the Tap. I think we could do more for food carts by just looking at the fees and encouraging it that way.
So that would be the fees for throughout the city, then we would just change the fee structure altogether, is what you're advocating.
Right. Right now, it's $500 for an annual food truck license, $75 per event, and that can be up to like a two-day event, or is $75
48-hour event. Yeah.
Is $75 the right number, or is that, should it be lower, 50? Or I wish I would have known about what Wanakee. I didn't look into the other communities. Larry, do you have any idea what some of those others are doing, or not off the top of your head?
No, I'm sorry.
I didn't look. I should have looked into it, but I didn't.
Well, we have time because we're not voting on anything yet, so.
So do we want to look into some of the other communities and bring it back next month to determine our fee structure, or is that something we need to do today?
I don't know.
How quickly can we work our fingers?
When is the
Jade's pulling up Wanakee's, so stand by for just a second.
Oh,
I'll be able to
thanks,
let at
Matt.
least what Wanakee is.
Okay, Matt.
I'm gonna choose Sun Prairie just to see what they do.
I'll do Verona.
The Wanakee is a $7 background, $25 application, $25 daily fee, with a $250 annual fee, if not more than 10 events.
Say that again. $7 application.
$7 background, $25 application, $25 daily, and a $250 annual, not more than 10 events.
Okay.
If they do more than one. Yep. And I think it would be nice if, if it was just people were coming in for one event, if there was something with that annual fee. They don't do anything else in Middleton except for one, for example. Maybe there's some exemption to the annual. I don't know. Yeah, just
That's an
fee
interesting
or
thought.
whatever.
Yeah, what if there was such a thing, like you make it like $100 per event if you wanted to skip the annual, but then as soon as you had 4, or make it 150 per event, and as soon as you did 4 events in town, it would make much more sense to do the annual fee. You know what I mean?
We're currently $75 per event.
Per event, but that's like plus the annual truck.
Plus the annual fee,
You
right?
don't have to pay for the annual.
In Middleton,
No, I think if you paid $75, you can do your single event.
but don't you have to have a $500 truck?
No, I
Or-
think that's either or is how I understood it, but I could, if you wanted to start out and just do individual events, you would pay $75.
I see.
Or if you knew you were going to be here more consistently, you would do 500.
Okay, well, so that's kind of where I was coming from. If
Yeah.
it's more consistent. Okay. I see what you mean. So $75 per event is what we have now, whether or not you decide to do the annual fee. If you do the annual fee, do you also have to pay per event?
No, I don't think so. I think that's covers it then. It's for people who don't think they'll be doing a lot of events. They have the option, like if they want to just do Good Neighbor Fest, they would pay $75 and they would do Good Neighbor Fest.
Got it.
And it does, the ordinance is written that it says 48 consecutive hours, but it can be longer if it's directly associated with a special event permit, which Good Neighbor
Mhm.
Fest would.
For
That's-
$75, you get the,
Correct.
3-day.
Yeah. So the $500 is annual, like Kathy was saying, is as many as you wanted to. You can go out every day if you wanted to.
So $75 really isn't out of line with what Wanakee has then. Really, the fee that's the higher, the one that we need to really look at would be the operator permit fee. Because that's the one that seems to be out of line.
operator and the annual maybe, huh?
Well, I'm wondering if we're doing $75 for 48 hours or 2 or longer, if you have a special event, would it make more sense to do a lower amount for 24 hours?
But
Interesting.
I think some of those folks come in and they go, hey, I'm great. I've been hired by Capital Flight to do Rock the Ramp. We're doing it around the first of the year. They go, well, I pay $500. I don't know if anyone else is going to hire me throughout the year. That would be hard to dig out unless you knew exactly what your whole year was going to look like.
Exactly. Mhm.
I think that's the rub. That people just don't know what the year might have in store for them. So if they do one event, they've got to invest that large upfront fee, and they don't know if they're going to be able to dig out from that.
Mhm.
So
Katie, I liked where you were going though, where you said you would cap it out at that amount, the top amount, if they did individual up to that amount.
yeah, I wonder, you could cap it out or even just take the annual away and like just have a standard per event, per day, or per special event fee. I honestly, I'm just spitballing.
Mhm.
Well, even Wanakee had a $250 annual fee.
For 10 or fewer events.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, when I charge for my services for personal training. It's one fee if you want to pay me each time. And it's a cheaper fee if you want to buy a 10-pack. I mean, I'm wondering if there's a way that that could be kind of how we do it.
So $25 per event, up to 10 events for a $250 fee, or $30 individually.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm going with that. And then if you buy the 10-pack, then the police are happy because they only have to do the one round of background checks.
Right.
And that's where you can say, yeah, you're saving us time. We're going to give you a deal.
One thing I don't know is how we would track that, like the number of
Good point.
times used, yeah. And it would probably fall more on the city clerk's office than the police department.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Again, just ideas.
Well, I definitely think that we should include more operators with the truck permit, so that, because they do have more people, and then we could do 2 or 3 with it. But right now, just having the $100 for an annual and not that many, I would doubt we sell very many annual truck permits at $500.
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
seems,
looking at a spreadsheet we have that we keep for the background checks that we've done. So far this year, it looks like there's been 3 applications for mobile food trucks. I can't tell. It looks like 2 of them are probably just single events because a specific date is listed. And the other one is Dickey's Barbecue, which I'm assuming is an annual, but I don't know for sure if that's the case.
Yeah. So what do we want to do with this? Anything?
well, I think we should keep talking about it, if nothing else, but I mean, Dan, what's your thought?
Well, I have no issue with changing the fee structure. We just need to maybe talk to some people, decide how we want to set up the fee structure, and then come back and vote on it. We'll probably get some feedback from some of the restaurants in town. I mean, that's kind of the reason why this whole thing got started, in the $500 fee in the first place.
Right.
So, you know, in order to be fair, we should probably have a proposed fee, bring it back to another meeting so that those folks can weigh in if they wish.
Okay.
Yeah. Fair.
Okay. So we're not ready to do a proposed fee right now, correct? Or are we?
So, are
What
you?
did you say?
It doesn't seem to me as though we are, but are
Okay.
either of you two?
No, that's fine. It was just for discussion to get the ball rolling, basically, you know,
Okay.
just to see, because I just think the operator permit is just way out of whack. And
I think we're expensive, and we can make it more user friendly, no doubt.
yeah. The only other thing would be like, if we were to do something, if it could help like the art walk, or if they're getting trucks in or something, so. And I think maybe the CDA might be thinking of doing something like that too. Do you think, Katie? So,
I would think so. I haven't looked at the agenda for Thursday.
yeah, okay. Well, we'll discuss, we can discuss. So, okay, I think that's everything. We've got so do we want this on next month's agenda again? And I think we won't do anything with Maury as making it similar to the tab. I think we'll just work on improving the permitting as a whole.
Okay.
Okay. And Jeremy, will you put that on the agenda again?
Sure, it just as another discussion point, or?
Well, it depends on how far we get.
All right, I'll put it as a placeholder as a discussion for next month.
Okay.
And then you guys let me know if you want something else.
Okay, great.
All right, all right. We have no other agenda items. Would
Wow.
anyone like to?
We did that pretty well.
Yeah,
Not bad.
okay.
Okay,
have any
I'll move
motion?
to adjourn. I've got another meeting to go to shortly.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Larry.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
My
everybody.
pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
Fun.
Bye, Julie.
Bye.